So here Gideon is doing the right thing, but he's hiding. He's doing it at the bottom of a wine press. This is us oftentimes finding ourselves doing the thing that God's asked us to do in our closet. And God's like, I need you to go to the highest point. Generally, what happens is we start to look at the circumstances. We find the Midianites. And so if I called you to go to the highest point to do what God's asked you to do, we're like, why would I do that? Then I'm going to be rejected. It's going to fail. It's not going to work. It's going to be vulnerable. I've done that 1,000 times. Therein lies the problem, is that I'm willing to do the right thing for the Lord. I'm just not willing to be in the right place for the wind of God to do what he's able to do. So just like Gideon, we're at the bottom of the wine press praying for God to move. And I would like to propose he's waiting for you to move.
Welcome to Free to Dream podcast. Join me as we dive into what truly means to dream with God as we create uninhibitedly and live unapologetically. Are you free? This is the Free to Dream podcast. Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Free to Dream podcast. My name is Julia Gentry. For those of you who are joining for the first time, buckle up, Buttercup. This is where we go into the deep waters. And for those of you who have been following the last couple of weeks, we're going to get back to our regularly scheduled broadcast. We had a little bit of a sharp left-hand turn that we had to take last week, but I think it was important. So if you happen to not catch last week's episode, do that. Do that. I can't tell you how many people I have had the opportunity to share that word with. It's feeling very spot on for very many people. And so if you are just feeling the spinning, the shaking, like the walls are coming down, our pets' heads are falling off, that would be a great podcast to go listen to, because all of us know that even in this shaking, even in the spinning, even in times of disaster, God is bigger and he is always doing something. He is always up to something. And so really it's not about, is God here? It's learning to ask better questions, like what is God doing and how can I participate? So now that being said, when I say regularly, the regular broadcast, this whole season is around alignment and just giving you guys a front row seat into what I believe God is saying loud and clear, but also to me, real time. This word alignment is a word that he gave me years ago, and now he's unpacking real time. So we're going to continue on this journey. He gave me this word alignment, and then he gave me 7 steps to follow, a framework, a divine process that has really become a rhythm of my life. And over these next couple of episodes, unless we're taking some more sharp left-hand turns, I'm just walking you through each one of those on a real deep level. If you want the real short and sweet version, click on the link in the show notes and it gives you my 7 steps to arise and align real quick. I think it's like 15 minutes. So do that. If you like the deep waters, like I don't want a 15-minute YouTube clip. Me either. I don't either. Which is why we're here, because I want to unpack these steps. They revolutionized my life the first time God gave it to me, and it's rocking my world now as I'm eating it and learning to become what he's given me. And so I'm just going to unpack even more what this word ruach means today, and the breath of God, the wind of God, the power of God. But specifically, we're going to be talking about stop hiding and doing the right thing in the wrong place. Whoops. How many of you know doing the right thing in the wrong place is still not right? All right. So my question to you right out of the gate is, have you found yourself, because you're like, well, how do I know? How do I know, JG, if that's the case? Well, here's the question. Sometimes I get ahead of myself. I get so excited in what I want to share with you. So here's a question. Have you found yourself being faithful, obedient, and committed, and yet you still feel stuck? It's as though you're putting in the reps, but you're not getting the results. There's generally 2 reasons. One is timing, keep going, and the other is alignment, move. And so today we're not going to be talking about timing. We're going to be talking about move. We're going to be talking about some of the most uncomfortable places to be in our walk with the Lord. And ultimately, when we identify that, I am doing the right thing. I'm doing the thing that God's asked me to do, but I'm just doing it in the wrong place. I'm doing it in the wrong order. And sometimes that can actually feel like faithfulness, but it becomes blatantly obvious that you're hiding in what's familiar, hiding in what once worked, hiding behind what everybody else is doing, hiding in the boats of comfortability, hiding in a season when God is actually asking you to not be in your prayer closet. He's asking you to go to the nations. He's not just asking you to write the book, he's asking you to share the book. He's asking you, instead of doing all the things, he's asking you to do the one thing. And if we're not really in tune to what he's doing in each season and the alignment he's asking us to walk in, we can find ourselves hiding. And hence why it's important to really understand the breath of God, the wind of God, the alignment of God. And so we're going to talk about what does it look like just to really how to discern when your obedience and doing the thing that God's asked you to do turns into hiding. You're like, hiding. Why are you using that word? Oh my gosh, we hide behind so many things. I am a recovering hider. I've literally hid behind emails. I've hid behind phone calls. I've hid behind money and status. I've hid behind alcohol. I've hid behind even really healthy routines. I've hid behind my mom. I've hid behind my husband. I've hid behind my kids. I've hid behind ministry. Oh my gosh, you're like, what? I know. So part of it is I'm going to really ask that you lean in and you take this before God. This is not a thus saith the Lord. Obviously, my hiding might be your faithful steps of obedience and vice versa. And so this is very individual. And I'm going to really help you understand the difference between being faithful, doing the right things, but in the wrong place, and then being aligned. We're going to talk about just the patterns of the wind and the breath of God. We're going to talk about that generally. What it feels like is that, God is calling you out of place of safety, security, stability, because we start to hold on to too many things that make us feel safe, secure, and stable that aren't him. So oftentimes when we find ourselves hiding, we're turning to the things around us instead of turning to him. We're turning to our own control, the things that we can compartmentalize, those things. And we're going to really just talk about how to respond when the Lord starts to reposition you, because it's awkward. It can feel very out of body. It can feel very vulnerable, and it is so necessary. So we're going to do that today. So if you have just felt a little bit restless, maybe even constrained, resistant, even find yourself being like, dang, this isn't working. And like deeply, this isn't just a timing thing. This isn't a faithfulness thing. It's a move. It's a move thing. We're going to do that. So let's start with just kind of the basics again. This word ruach. Ruach is my word for the year. It's what got me back to doing podcasting. Because I just felt like, oh my gosh, I got to tell people what God's telling me. I got to tell them what I'm learning. But what I've learned about this word is that it's three parts. The ruach, breath of God, is the breath of God. It's the wind of God, and it's the power of God. It's the wind. It's the breath in my lungs. So for those of us who forget that if you're breathing, you're alive. And if you're alive, it's because of God's divine order. It's the wind of God, which means that he can do the things that you can't do. He can move the waves that you can't move part. It's the wind of God that can move the mountains you can't move. And it's the power of God living in you that allows you to do the things that you can't do on your own. David killing Goliath, Esther before the king. It's a divine partnership with him. That's what Ruach means. So 2 episodes ago, I invited you into really understanding what the breath of God meant. I talked not only about just the spiritual side of what breath is, but also just the physical side, the benefits to breath work, the benefits of breathing. And today we're going to talk about the wind of God. And how we've seen the wind of God not only awaken dry bones in the book of Ezekiel, but how the very wind of God invades a story of someone in the Bible that I love so much, because I identify with the character of in the Bible. anyways, what's amazing about what I'm about ready to share is that at the end of 2025, you guys know that I had this great awakening right before turning 40. And I know that Ruach is my word. And so I am inviting my intercessors into the process. One of the intercessors is really running towards Ezekiel, the dry bones, telling the dry bones to come to life, which is not wrong. It is not wrong, but I felt like I am circling dry bones, and this is not it. It felt very much like God is asking me just to leave the dry bones, like move on, right? I had this real, because I did that for a couple of days, very in my quiet space. My kids are gone for 4 days, and I'm circling these dry bones, and I'm telling them to come to life, come to life. And it feels hard, feels strenuous. It feels like there is no joy here. There's no life here. And so out of the blue, one of our dream builders texts me and says, I feel strongly that God is on you, and that the very breath of God, the very wind of God is going to be positioning you this year. Now, I had not told her anything about some of my revelations. So this is the coolest thing. So I was like, man, like this hits home. Thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else you want me to know? And she's like, yeah, I want, he wants you to read Judges. Judges 6 and 7. 6, 7. Don't say that. Don't say that. Cut that. Someone cut that. Okay. So I was like, Judges 6, that's, when you're like, how about Corinthians? How about Ephesians? Anyways, I knew exactly what she was talking about. She's talking about Gideon. I love Gideon. I had studied Gideon the year prior. Love Gideon. I actually find myself relating to him in the sense that Gideon is a hider. Gideon, he is found hiding. And so anyways, I turn to Judges 6, 7 in a very quiet space. And that is where we're going to go today, because Gideon is named, you guys, the champion deliverer. So if you know anything about the history of the Bible and how is written, Judges falls in this category, in this place of where for 400 years, Israel has no king and no prophets to guide them, which we all know that if Jesus is not our king, and someone who doesn't follow Jesus isn't our king, it can be reckless, right? The opinions of man rule, which, not saying that that's happening, but it's very true. So when Jesus is not our king, think about this personally. When Jesus is not my king, when my eyes are not on Jesus, I will follow the opinions of people. I will follow the opinions of man. I will follow the opinions of stats. I will follow the opinions of yesterday. Go back and listen to this last week's YouTube. I actually come out pretty heavy hitting with men, basically saying that if I care more about what other people think, then I've gotten my eyes off of Jesus. I care more about what they think. I just want everyone to be happy. Your eyes are not on the Lord. I just want to beat that person. Eyes are not on the Lord. I just want to be better than everyone else. Eyes are not on the Lord. Well, I kind of care what other people think. Your eyes are not on the Lord. It's not scriptural. Like, well, I care about people. No, you don't. No, you don't, because your eyes are not on Jesus. When Jesus is not our king, when Jesus is not your king, the opinions of man rule our lives. This is what's happening. Yet God is going to lead people into revival using his people. And he starts to call, there's major and minor judges. And so Gideon is a judge. And so here we are in the book of Judges. It's a fascinating book to read, but we're going to look at Judges 6:11. And Gideon is actually called the champion deliverer, which is fascinating when we actually read this part of the story. So if I look at verse 11, it says, the angel of Yahweh came to the village of Ophrah and sat down under the oak tree that belonged to Joash, a man of the clan of Abizair. Abizair. Take two. Abizair. Oh my gosh. Moving on. His son Gideon was secretly threshing some wheat in a wine press so the Midianites would not see him. Here's what's fascinating. Forgive the fact that I don't know how to pronounce that name. Abizer. That's probably what it is. First one does the walking, second does the talk. First one does the walking, first one does the talking, second one does the walking, Abizer. Regardless. Here's what this verse says, the one that we're actually zoning in on. His son Gideon was secretly threshing some wheat in a wine press so that the Midianites would not see him. Everything we need to know about this verse. First of all, Gideon means warrior. He is a warrior. That's what his name means. Isn't that interesting that oftentimes
God gives us a name, and we act outside of our God-given identity. And then if we're not careful, we allow our behavior to dictate our identity as opposed to our God-given name. So here's Gideon, whose name means warrior. Embedded in his destiny is this champion deliverer. Like that is who he is. Secretly threshing some wheat in a wine press so that the Midianites would not see him. Now, in his defense, first and foremost, the Midianites are man slaughterers. The Midianites are devastating the land. The Midianites are worth being afraid of. So let's not minimize the reality and the practicality of what's actually going on around Gideon right now, which relates to us. I'm not here to minimize your problems. I'm not here to minimize why you're hiding. I'm not here to minimize the things that you're facing. However, I am here to maximize who the Lord is and who you say you are in him, so that the circumstances and the quote unquote Midianites around you don't cause you to hide. You hiding doesn't glorify the Lord. You avoiding what he's asked you to do does not glorify his name. In fact, it maximizes the problem. It maximizes the enemy, and that we cannot do that. So here he is. Now he's hiding from the Midianites so they won't see him. Rightfully so. You're like, that's justifiable. Now, what's also really interesting about this is that he's threshing some wheat in a wine press so that the Midianites would not see him. Why is he threshing some wheat? Well, he's doing that to survive. So he's doing the right thing. He is threshing wheat. The reason that you thresh wheat is because you're actually separating that which is good from that which is not. You're actually creating, you're causing, the chafing causes that which is holy and true and edible to separate from that which is not. Okay, so he is doing the right thing. However, he's doing it at the bottom of a wine press in a secret place. This is so fascinating to me because the reason that I thresh wheat is to separate it. But then the posture of where that wheat needs to be placed matters, because it's the wind that has to then separate the wheat, the things that needs to stay from the wheat from that which can't. It has to actually have room to separate itself. If I am at the bottom of a wine press where there is no breath, no wind, then I just have a disaster. I just have a mess. But if I go to a higher place where there is the wind, it can separate that which needs to stay from that which doesn't. So here Gideon is doing the right thing, but he's hiding. He's doing it at the bottom of a wine press, not at the highest point where the wind can take it. So this is us oftentimes finding ourselves doing the thing that God's asked us to do in our closet. And God's like, I need you to go to the highest point. I need you to remember who I am. You're like, I would never do that. I'm not going to put myself out there. Why? Because I'm going to get hurt. Or I'm going to get rejected. Whose business are we in? Whose eyes, right? Who has our eyes? Right? Generally, what happens is we start to look at the circumstances. We find the Midianites. And so if I called you to go to the highest point to do what God's asked you to do, we're like, why would I do that? Then I'm going to be rejected. It's going to fail. It's not going to work. It's going to be vulnerable. I've done that 1,000 times. Therein lies the problem, is that I'm willing to do the right thing for the Lord. I'm just not willing to be in the right place for the wind of God to do what he's able to do. So just like Gideon, we're at the bottom of the wine press praying for God to move. And I would like to propose that he's praying to move you. I'm going to say that again. We find ourselves doing the right thing for the Lord, but because of our insecurity, our shame, our upbringings, the things that are happening around us, we're doing it in the right place, praying for God to move, praying for God to do the impossible thing. But I would like to propose, he doesn't actually just want to intervene in the wrong place. He wants you to listen to him, to obey him, to be in the right place so his wind can do what only he can do. He's not waiting for him to move. He's waiting for you to move. That's a good word right there. Verse 12, Yahweh's angel suddenly appeared to Gideon and said, Yahweh's presence goes with you, man of fearless courage. And that moment,
the angel of the Lord appears to Gideon and he prophesies over him, which means he reminds him of who he is, not how he behaves. That's an encounter with the Lord. You listening to this today is me giving you a divine alignment to tell you that you are not how you behave. You are not just what you achieve or don't achieve. You are not how you think. You are not just how you feel. You are who God says you are. And the very word, the very destiny that God gave you before you learned to control, before you learned to hide, before you were an addict, before you found yourself sinning, he says that you are a new creation. The old is gone, the new has come. So now God is now prophesying destiny over Gideon, reminding him that, hey, you are a fearless warrior. I'm here to tell you today, you're a fearless warrior. You're a child of God. You're an overcomer. No, that is not how I feel. Well, you have feelings. You're not your feelings. Well, that is not what I think about me. Well, you have thoughts. You're not your thoughts. Well, that is not how I'm behaving. Well, you have behavior. You're not your behavior. This is part of divine alignment. You are who God says you. He doesn't address, here's what's beautiful. He doesn't address the fact that Gideon is in the wrong place. He doesn't shame him. He reminds him of who he is. Now, by the way, this is exactly how God works. He meets you right where you're at, but he doesn't let you stay where you're at. But he doesn't meet you in shame and condemnation. He meets you with prophetic covering, prophetic name that calls you higher. Repeat after me. Higher. Go higher. Me? Gideon says. But sir, if Yahweh is truly with us, why have all these troubles come to us? Where are all his miracle wonders that our fathers told us about when they said, did not Yahweh deliver us out of Egypt? But now Yahweh has abandoned us and put us under the power of the Midianites. Love this guy. I love this guy because he's so real. By the way, part of the process of realigning with the Lord is he can handle your realness. However, his heart posture is not ideal because what Gideon has now done is he has placed his expectations that were not met, and he is bowing his knee to the expectations that he has, forgetting about the goodness of God. Oftentimes we want to understand all the things about God, but if we can't understand his mystery, we can't understand his miracles. And so the reality here is that Gideon is bowing his knee to resentment and cynicism because he has there's been missed expectations and disappointment of who he thought God was and what he thought God should do. And it causes him to be weak in his thinking. This is what postures him doing the right thing in the wrong place. This is huge for us to recognize. This is why we can still be doing the right things for the Lord, but in the wrong place because of the disappointment that we have, the shallow roots in the goodness of who God is. God isn't just good because of what he does. God is good because of who he is. And oftentimes in gratitude practices or in church, we learn to praise him for the works of his hand, and we forget about his heart. We forget about his character. And I'm here to tell you today that we don't express gratitude for the Lord because of just what he's done. We express gratitude for the Lord for who he is. This is why he's cynical. This is also why he's in the wrong place. So if you find yourself doing the right thing but in the wrong place, I would ask you to check your cynicism, check your disappointment, check your resentment, check how you might be stacking your disappointments against the Lord. It's a real thing. This is not to shame you. You're like, oh, why does that feel so true? Because he made me do that a lot in a season that felt like a lot of unanswered prayers, doing the right thing in the right time, and then wasn't happening, right? God's timing, going back to that season, God's timing, and then it's not happening. And so now I just don't know that I believe, like Gideon. Then verse 14, here's what's incredible, what I love about this. So Gideon keeps it real. He shares his heart with this angel. And then in verse 14, it's Yahweh himself. Then Yahweh himself faced Gideon directly. It goes from an angel of the Lord to the Lord himself. He says, am I not sending you? With my presence, you will have all you need. Go in the strength that you now have and rescue Israel from Midian's power. The angel of Yahweh now reveals himself as Yahweh. So this is a divine encounter that empowers Gideon to face the overwhelming odds and to defeat the Midianite armies. This is the very wind, breath, and power of God. One encounter with God
meeting us right where we're at, now empowers us. He doesn't make Gideon physically stronger. He doesn't all of a sudden give him everything he needs. He reminds him of who he is because of who he is, and it empowers him to do what he's called to do. He went out in the strength of an encounter. He didn't go out in the strength of theology. He goes out in the strength of an encounter with God, because the very breath, wind, and empowerment of the Holy Spirit meets him right where he's at. Now he's clothed in the favor of the Holy Spirit. He found the power he needed to be commissioned and walk in the authority of God. How do we position ourselves from the place of doing the right thing to actually the highest point, what feels like the most vulnerable point, which feels like the most rejectable point, which feels like the most risky point, is that we actually believe in the empowerment of the Holy Spirit, just as he has the strength of this encounter with God, that it moves us to get to the highest point, and at that place, doing the thing that God's asked us to do. The beautiful thing about this, again, is that Yahweh really shows a clear distinction that Gideon has to move. Gideon needs to respond to do what God's called him to do, but that Yahweh, our Lord, our God, with his presence, will give us everything that we need. Some of us aren't moving because we are so self-focused that we've lost our eyes on the Lord. I don't know that I have what it takes. You don't. I don't think I have enough. You don't. I don't think I'm going to know all the answers. You won't. You're not supposed to. So otherwise, that's not a God-given dream. That's nothing miraculous. You're surely not going to change the world on your own shoulders. However, the empowerment of the Lord, who fills the gap of what you can't do, who fills the understanding that you're not meant to understand, that is the testimony that the world needs. The world doesn't need more sharpshooters. Like, the world doesn't need more, look at me and look at what I accomplished. The world needs a God who created the whole world in the very palm of his hands, who knew the very end when he started the beginning. That God. That God. So Gideon says to him, verse 5, "But Lord, how could I ever rescue Israel? Of all the thousands in Manasseh, my clan is the weakest, and I'm the least qualified in my family." Again, eyes on Gideon. Gideon, eyes on the Lord. He's like, literally, the Lord is standing in front of him, and he puts his eyes back on himself. I feel convicted. Do you feel convicted? I feel convicted. Like, the Lord himself is standing in front of us. We're like, have we forgotten who he is? Yeah. Good news is you're not the only one. Hard news is get your eyes off yourself. We live in a culture right now that teaches us to look better, do better, be quicker, faster, smarter. And then they give us all these tools, and it's becoming a God. And so we are so self-focused that we're taking our eyes off the Lord. So your propensity to do that, don't resist the propensity to do that. Just move through it. Yahweh replies, "My presence and my power will be with you." He's saying the same thing again. Like, he's not saying anything new. God keeps it simple. That's why I love him. Keeps it simple. Gives him the reassuring words that he gave Moses, reassuring words that he gave Joshua, reassuring words that he's giving you today. He will be with you. Believe me, Gideon. He says, believe me, Gideon. You will crush the Midianites as easily as if they were only one man. Then Gideon says, "If it's really true that you will go with me and that I have found grace before your eyes, then show me a miracle sign to prove that you are really Yahweh speaking with me. Don't leave until I return with my offering to you." What's interesting, at first, you're like, whoa, don't test the Lord your God. But it's interesting what Gideon just said. So I'm not going to spend time talking about you asking God to prove himself to you. I don't think that is appropriate. I don't need God to prove himself to me. I need to do what Gideon does next, because what he says is, don't leave until I return with my offering to you. The Lord says, I'll wait until you return. So Gideon went, and he cooked young goat and many loaves of unleavened bread. He placed the meat in a basket and the broth in a pot, and he took his offering and presented it to him underneath the tree. Here's why this is incredible, is that this was a time of significant scarcity, and Gideon goes and he gets everything he has. That's what I think is incredible. That's the turning point for Gideon. This is what moves him out of the wrong spot. He doesn't just obey. He actually goes and gets the last of what he has in the scarcest of times. And he goes, "Lord, you can have this." He brings him an offering. Like, Most of us at this point in time, if we're being honest, maybe not, that's okay. You're like, I've given God everything. And yet, so had Gideon, but he still finds something, the rest of everything. Do you know what I mean? Like, I still have more I could give God. He gives it to him. God's angel says to Gideon, place the meat and bread on the rock and pour the broth over them. And Gideon did so. These next couple of scripture, basically what all these scriptures are saying is that Gideon surrenders the rest and names this place in Yahweh, there is peace. That basically means that now I will follow God who gives me peace, the peace that passes all understanding. So the divine moment is when Gideon, he wrestles with the Lord meets him right where he's at. Then he gives him an offering. He gives him the rest. It's part of alignment. A sign of alignment is I give God the rest. We think that alignment sounds so pretty and so sexy, and God gives us all these things because, right, seek first his kingdom and righteousness, and all these things will be added. Well, but before all things are added, he subtracts. As you can see, subtracts it. And so if you're in a season where you feel like things are falling through your fingers, good. If you're in a season where almost all you can do is put your hands up in worship or fall on your knees and just put eyes on Jesus, good. If you're at a place that now what moves you is that you actually give the rest to God, all of it to him. And then you realize that, oh, that's my place of peace. When I give everything to him and nothing has me anymore, accomplishments, safety, security, stability, the addiction, people pleasing, when I finally give him everything, I find a peace that passes all understanding, which is why now there is this altar that Gideon builds and names it in Yahweh, there is peace. Now, here's what's interesting. From this moment on, God starts to lead him. He actually has more problems with the clans around him. People don't like what's happening. Gideon starts to take some risks for the Lord. He starts to move in the direction that God asks him to move. He starts to do the things. So now Gideon's given up everything. Now Gideon starts to take some risks. He starts to move to the highest place. Envision yourself, right? You're moving out of your prayer closet. You're moving out of position, right? You've subtracted. Well, now there's disorientation in his community. People don't like it. People are judging him. People are mad. People are angry. I'd like to propose that when you're in obedience, it's convicting for other people. They don't like it. They need to defend. They need to defend their own altars that they've built. That's what happens here. People start to defend their idols. People start to defend what they hold on to. So for the next series of verses, it's not great. Then the beauty of this, though, is when God brings Gideon to a place that he goes, all right, now I want you to go. I want you to go, and I want you to take the territory that I have given you. And here's where this gets even good. It is chapter 7. It's actually called Gideon's Shrinking Army. So Gideon is doing everything that he asked him to do through the rest of chapter 6, which is really hard, by the way. He has to face the idol of rejection. He has to face the idol of caring what other people think. He's got to lay down even his care for the clan. He has to lay down the immediate needs of other people to ensure that he's giving them what they're going to want most, which is freedom from the Midianites. So now, as you can imagine, Gideon's like, all right, I got this army. This army is going to help me defeat the Midianites. But Yahweh speaks to Gideon in chapter 7, verse 2. He says, you have too many in your army. If I give them victory over the Midianites, they might claim credit for themselves at my expense, thinking that they had won the victory on their own. You'd be like, say what? So again, subtraction is still happening. Gideon's now in alignment, but guess what? God's taking more away from him. It's not to harm him. It's to keep him aligned. It's to ensure that these people don't claim victory for something that only God can do. Because at some level, if this army of thousands and thousands of men win, they may go, well, we did that. And God's like, that I want the glory. The part of subtraction and alignment is that God wants the glory. He doesn't want you to have the glory. He wants him to have the glory. So he says, announce to all your men, all who are trembling and afraid, hurry back home and leave Mount Gilead. So he basically says, anyone who's afraid, anyone who doesn't want to fight in this battle, go home. So 22,000 men go back home, and only 10,000 have stayed with Gideon. So first of all, he didn't really start with that many men, considering how big the Midianite army is.
He had 32,000 men. 22,000 are too afraid. That tells you how scarce they had gotten, how little they had become, how small-minded their thinking was, because not only did they run because of they didn't believe they didn't have it, but they forgot that their God had it. So now he's got 10,000 men. So Yahweh says to Gideon, at that point, you're like, if you're Gideon, you're thinking, oh my gosh, now I got nothing. Then Gideon hears the voice of the Lord. You still have too many men. Take them down to the water and I will test them. I will test them for you there. He says, I will test them for you. You're like, for me? Oh my gosh. Already, I mean, he's already got the guys who are too focused on themselves and their own weaknesses out of the equation. What's happening right now? Anyone who's too focused on themselves and their own weakness right now are going to get sucked into the spinning vortex I talked about last week. It's part of the enemy's plans. If we are so focused on ourselves, then we would always bow our knee to fear because we've forgotten who God is. It's part of the enemy's strategy. Don't forget that. So now he says, now I'm going to do this for you. Gideon's like, this ain't for me. How many times have God does something for you and you're like, this ain't for me? God's like, yes, it is. His thoughts are not your thoughts. His ways are not your ways. So if I tell you a man should go with you, he will go. If I tell you a man should not go with you, he will not go. So he brings him down to the water. Separate those who drink from their cupped hands and drink as a dog laps. Separate those who drink from their cupped hands and drink as a dog laps from those who kneel down to drink. Of the 10,000 men, how many do you think it is? This is brilliant. 300. 300 lapped water from their cupped hands. All others knelt to drink. Okay, so the Midianites at this point have 135,000 men, which means that at this point, there's 300 men left in Gideon's army. So they are outnumbered 450 to 1. That's the equivalent of you standing in front of 450 people to fight in a war. You're like, I wouldn't do that. I mean, here's the real test. What are you looking at? What are you paying attention to? Am I paying attention to the 450 around me? Or am I paying attention to the Lord who holds the 450 men in his hands? It's called perspective. It's called interpretation. But here we are. I mean, the reality, right? So maybe you feel like that today. Maybe you are one in front of your 450 army that's standing in front of you. Now multiply that times a lot more. It's a lot. If you're looking at 135,000 men, it's a lot. So Gideon sent all the Israelites home except the 300 who kept the supplies and chauffeurs of those who had left. That night Yahweh commanded Gideon, this is verse 9, get up and attack the camp. I am giving you victory over the Midianites. This is so crazy. He says, but if you're afraid to engage them, first go down into camp with your servant Purah. Listen to what they are saying, and then you will be brave and have the courage to attack. This is brilliant. God is so good. I don't know about you, but Gideon has got to be at that time going, you've got to be kidding me. God says, get up and attack the camp. I'm giving you victory. And you're like, I got 300 men. That's 1 to 450. But God goes, hey, go down there. Go down to the camp. I want you to listen. Listen to what they are saying. So Gideon does this. He goes down with Purah and he approaches the outposts of the enemy camp. The Midianites, the Amalekites, and the desert tribesmen were spread out in the valley like a swarm of locusts. They had as many camels as there were grains of sand on the seashore. As soon as Gideon arrives, he hears an enemy soldier telling a friend about a dream. Isn't this interesting that God can even give dreams to the enemy of his people to work on behalf of his people? That's how crazy our God is. That's horrible. I can't use that word. That's how majestic our God is. That's how brilliant our God is. He says, I dreamed of a round loaf of barley bread coming whirling into our camp and leveled a tent. It hit the tent so hard it turned it upside down and the tent collapsed on the ground. His friend interprets the dream. Now God's given that guy, the other enemy friend, the insight to this guy's dream. That is not a process of the enemy, by the way. That is given permission from the Lord. Your dream symbolizes the sword of the Israelite Gideon, son of Joash. It can't mean anything else. God has given him victory over Midian and our whole army. Gideon heard the man's dream and what it meant. He fell to his knees and worshiped Yahweh. He went back to the Israelite camp and shouted, come on, it's time to strike. Yahweh is giving you victory over the Midianite army. Then what we realize is that now actually the Gideon's army circles them, makes a bunch of loud noises, goes crazy, and the Midianites kill each other. Gideon's army never even has to attack. Gideon's army never even has to lay a sword on one of them. They kill each other because of their own fear and their own disorientation. God uses Gideon's obedience at the highest point, the riskiest point, the most vulnerable point. He shows up, and the very wind of God is able to separate the wheat from the chaff. What am I here to remind you today? Stop hiding. That is the most holy, reverent way I know how to put it. And I say it from the very depths of my soul, who's hid for 32 years of her life. This is coming from someone who I learned to hide because I was rejected. I lost control. I felt like I couldn't trust anyone. And I had years of proof. I had every reason to hide. I still have lots of reasons to hide. And yet I realize that in my hiding, I have created an idol of self. And now if I'm not careful in these places that I'm hiding, I'm putting my circumstances, my interpretations, my biases, and my opinions above God's. And so I am here to tell you today that you might be doing the right thing in the wrong place. And that doesn't make you crazy. It makes you now at the right place, hearing the right message and the opportunity to take the next bold step, just like Gideon. I believe that there is a divine framework in this. And to go back quickly to summarize is that the angel of the Lord is meeting you here today. And he's telling you, you are who God says you are. He starts with your identity. He reminds you today, I'm here to remind you today of who you are and not just how you behave. I'm here to remind you that you are more than a conqueror, that you are a sheep who hears the shepherd's voice, that you are a new creation, Lord, that you are an overcomer, right? That you are adopted by the Lord, that cries out, Abba, Father. And it's from this place that you're allowed to now take your resentment and your cynicism and to go, God, I'm disappointed. I've been frustrated. I feel like I've been let down. I admit I might be doing the right thing, but no, I'm not in the right place because I've bowed my knee to circumstances, to false interpretations, to idols, to fear, to worry. And then to surrender it because he's here now saying, I'm going to send you. I'm going to send you into that battle. And there you get to actually give him the final thing of all that you got. Just like Gideon, to dig deep and to give him that last offering and the scarcest of seasons to give him everything you've got. And to realize that alignment is about subtraction. It's not just about addition. And to let him take from you everything that can't go with you because he wants to be shown glorified through your bold move, not you. That this doesn't have to rest on false responsibility. You don't have to know how this is going to happen. You don't actually need the resources in your bank account or the strategy on paper or all the people in the world to help you win for the Lord. He's going to do it. The wind of God is going to come and back you and do what you can't do. But that means you're going to have to come out of hiding and no longer do the right thing in the wrong place. You're going to have to go to the highest point. The highest point resembles that place of sheer surrender and obedience to God, the one that feels the riskiest and the most vulnerable, but it feels so aligned with him where the peace that passes all understanding is going to guard your heart and your mind in him. That is the highest point. How do you know you're at the highest point? Because there's peace. I don't know about you, but when I'm hiding, there's not peace. It's chaos, it's chatter. Like I need a drink of wine to quiet the noise in my mind, right? Like I'm fidgety, I'm edgy, I'm triggered, I'm reactive. But when I get to the highest point with the Lord, there is a peace that passes all understanding. I don't always have to like it. It doesn't always feel comfortable. I generally feel the burn, but there is a wild peace that passes all understanding. And it's from that place we watch the wind of God kill the enemy in front of us. We obeyed. We got to the highest point. We're doing what he's asked us to do in the place that he's asked us to do it. And then we watch the very wind of God destroy our enemies. He didn't, if you notice in this battle, he doesn't empower Gideon to fight that battle. He does it. It's the wind. And that's what I want to focus in on today. There are many things that God's going to do in and through you fighting that army. But today I want you to realize that when you get to the highest point and the wind of God hits, it's able to part the Red Sea, move the mountains, kill the Midianites in front of you. So before you go, I want to leave you with a few questions, ones that you can really sit with. The question is, where might you be being faithful, but now you know that you're not aligned? Where are you being faithful, but the peace of God that passes all understanding is not following you? There's no peace on it any longer. Where are you being called to obedience, but you are actually hiding in it? You're obeying, but you're not in the right place. And where do you sense the wind of God gently directing you, inviting you to move? Where's your highest point? That's what I want you to think about. Go back and listen to this episode again if you need to. Read Judges, all of Judges if you want, but specifically Judges 6 and 7. Study Gideon. Study the heart of God on Gideon's life. Watch what happens in the chapters to come. It's incredible. It's an incredible story. He ends up being an incredible leader, all because he just remembered who he was in the Lord. And that's what I hope you take away from today. Now, if this episode stirred something in you, I want you to do a couple of things for me. First, I want you to answer these questions. Please don't rush throughout your day. Remember, these podcast episodes are designed to blow your mind and get after your heart. We don't want just more information. We want more transformation. So actually sit down and answer those questions. Then what you can do is that if this moved you, like and share this episode. It supports the growth. It gets it out there. The algorithms. Do you know what I mean? Like, what's my highest point? Doing these. You guys, I don't love pushing this go live button. I don't love the game of marketing. I don't enjoy this part, but I do it. So what you can do for me is to like and to share it. And then of course, subscribe so that you can get updates every week. So you can stay in the know in the deep waters, jumping deep with me every single week for episodes that I do. I hope it rocks your world because it's rocking mine. And then for all of you who are still going, oh my gosh, I need this like a fat kid needs chocolate. It's a bad example. I need this like Gideon needs the Lord to show up. Better example. I want to invite you into our Rise and Align experience. This right now, sorry, gentlemen, but it's only for ladies. It's a incredible framework of everything that God's taught me. It's an entire transformative course that's going to walk you through this entire process, this entire rhythm with the Lord. And I don't want you to miss out. So make sure you click on the link below, choose your path, whether you feel a little bit more self-led or you want to do this in community. That is your next step. So with all that being said, I pray that this gets you a little bit more aligned, living a little bit more free, because the reality is you are free to dream. See you next week. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Free to Dream podcast. I hope you are leaving on fire and ready to chase your dreams with boldness. Don't forget to like and subscribe and to share this episode with one person who needs it most. And as always, stay tuned in for more conversations every single week that are going to help you live out your God-given purpose, because you belong where you are free.